60%.
60%.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. One of the key banks are above that, or rather have met it.
Yeah.
So they don't really have a problem. But now, the trick that comes in again is central bank saying we'll again change how it's calculated, because lending to SMEs and these small businesses will be given, I think, a weighting of about 150%.
Oh.
So even about 150%.
What?
Yeah.
That's
so even if say you're already meeting the 60% loan to deposit ratio, that will probably be altered a bit. So so in essence, you're being told you need to meet that threshold between now and September 30th.
Yeah.
And for you to do that, you'll potentially have to make decisions without really doing thorough due diligence. I'm not saying I'm just
credit rush.
Yeah,
credit rush, yes.
Potentially.
Yeah.
So think along the lines of NPLs. What will that do to NPLs? Okay, the current NPL ratio for Nigerian banks is what?
It's about 13%.
No, 6.8.
6.8.
Yeah, 6.8%. Not very high, but neither not very low. But ask yourself what to do to that.
Yeah,
number.
to
And then tie between your NPLs and your valuation.
Yeah.
I think I'll just stop there.
And just to update our viewers, the thing is that Nigerian Central Bank for some time has been struggling with commercial banks in that country to increase lending to the economy. And I think a month ago they said that they will actually force banks to lend, and we were wondering back then how they'll do it. And they've just come up and say banks must have a minimum loans to deposit ratio of 60%, and now you're just saying that SMEs will have a weighting of what, 150%. That means that banks could have the minimum LDR for banks could vary depending on your exposure to SMEs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Some of them can have higher.
And they will issue a directive as to how to classify these businesses as whether SME, corporate. You may come and say, as Bank X, this is how we classify
SMEs.
Yeah, classify. But
actually, we see that a lot here in the market. Actually, there's a huge gap. There's a variation, some significant variation in how banks define SME. To some people, an SME is a business with turnover in excess of about $10 million every year. That's an SME. To some people, the threshold is much higher. To some people, the threshold. So that variation also comes into play.
Yeah.
But really, you bring out an interesting element on NPL. So NPLs could rise. So certainly, then I don't want to be buying these banks if there's an element of NPLs getting worse off. But that's at a micro level, looking at the banks. What's your sense of currency and the economic output and outlook? So do you feel like Nigeria, after the election cycle, with the sort of all the key government roles being filled, no changes at the Central Bank of Nigeria, do you get the sense that the currency is going to remain where it is, or do you get the sense from your own analysis, from your own discussions with people in that country, that there could be potentially another trigger to cause a weakness?
Well, first, to answer that, I'll take you back to what the central bank governor said. He said he's not planning to change anything substantial in the way things operate. So when he says that, and the other reason is, if you check the the NAFEX and the black market rate, it's not very far from each other.
Yeah, they've converged.
They're more or less converged. So comparing that to previous years where the difference was quite huge, then I think I'd say we don't expect much movement. I don't expect.
So if your currency is more or less stable, the economy is more or less, it's in a slightly better place than it was 3 years ago. Was it worse off?
Nigeria is a commodity dependent country once again. Where oil prices right now. I know there are a lot of geopolitical risks in the world right now. A lot of tension between Iran and the US, and Saudi Arabia, of course, being a key member.
So it's very hard to call it.
In the Middle East. When Iran increases or surpasses their threshold of their uranium enrichment, then you never know where oil will head. Maybe tariffs once again will be tough on who can really buy Iranian oil. So when that that balance comes in, then could affect.
Because really what I'm trying to get at is I'm saying on one end you're going to be forced to get a different to start lending to the SME sector, something that they haven't done. Certainly high risks affiliated with that. But then the currency is more or less stable. So the question to you, when you're looking at Nigerian banks on your portfolio and your Kenyan banks on your portfolio, if you had an extra 100 million shillings today, or dollars, or whatever currency you had, would you put more in Nigerian banks, or would you put more in Kenyan banks if you only had to invest in banks?
I'd really have to check how they are gonna, allocate this capital as the Nigerian banks themselves.
Yes.
To meet that threshold.
Okay.
Because I mentioned, for me as an investor, I question where the direction of the NPLs.
That's
and
true.
You see, I wouldn't want to come into an environment where NPLs will potentially.
You don't feel safer with IFRS 9 because it's a global, and I mean these are global accounting standards. So because I feel IFRS 9 has sort of created our framework to be able to capture the NPLs and forced the banks or the institutions associated with the banking industry to think ahead in terms of that risk element. Either you're saying the global standards don't work in Nigeria, or the 419 scam can actually go to the helm of the banking sector, and you're not sure of those numbers.
Oh, well, I don't know, John. What do you have to say?
Let me not put you
There's no group of people who drive accounting innovations
like
banks.
Like banks,
and especially banks in Nigeria.
Even globally, and even in Kenya.
Yeah.
I mean, I was looking at, for instance, and we need to let's look at full year 2019 numbers.
Yes.
I don't think we'll see any material increase in provisions. And this is, that's
Nigerian
one.
banks.
And that's one. Number two is that IFRS still doesn't cure, IFRS 9 doesn't cure the issue of risk subjectivity.
Okay.
So I don't think IFRS will cure some of these things we've seen broadly.
Yeah.
But you know, George, what I'm alluding to, especially when we talk about currency, because anytime we have a conversation here and we're looking at SSA, everybody keeps saying the Kenyan currency, the thing that's holding it to where it currently is, it's largely technical.
Yeah.
It's there's liquidity. CBK is able to come in and out of the market when they want. So that's the thing that we keep saying. But with regards to currency risk, every investor you speak to seems to have the sense that the currency in Kenya is overvalued.
Yeah.
So it's only a matter of time before a correction happens.
Yeah.
So fundamentally speaking, that's what we're saying. But then when I flip the question to Rolly, he's saying it feels like the worst could potentially have happened in Nigeria. But yes, there are the geopolitical risks. And when I look at these two elements, and in my own analysis, I say a Kenyan bank versus a Nigerian bank. I would say a GT bank could actually give you a better return if it has to go and look at the SME sector and find a way to make money there. Because when I look at a KCB and an equity in Nairobi, their upside is muted. The upside is based on regulation. It's not based on the business opportunity. But then the upside on the Nigerian banks is really there's a business opportunity that's been created. It's how you navigate it. So that's where I'm getting at.
I think for me as an asset allocator, if I was in that position, make a decision on asset allocation,
would you allocate to
between
Nigeria
and my
no
decision,
banks, not just generally everything.
Between Nigerian and Kenyan
But
banks.
we're answering his
My
question.
growth,
Really the asset allocator.
my decision point will be in who's likely to grow their loan books in the next 12 months between Kenyan banks and Nigerian banks.
I think
Nigerian banks are more likely to grow their loan books than Kenyan banks.
Yes.
Kenyan banks, I don't want to buy a bank that is still likely to buy more treasury bills and treasury bonds in the next 12 months.
You want someone who's lending.
I want someone who's going to make a lending decision.
Rolly has the money.
Nigerian banks are going to lend.
Rolly has to sign on the dotted line, and you're talking to us about SSA. Where would you put your money if you have to locate on banks?
I understand the perspective you're coming from.
Yes.
Like, first, the opportunity is great. Discount their level of valuation right now is low. So, but now again, I have to step back and look at Nigeria as a whole and think, worldwide. Think of Egypt, think of Kenya, think of other countries before allocating this capital. I have to also think what are other investors going to do in this case. But again, I think your point would be great for a long-term view, because the argument is this is a market whose main commodity has now been increasing in price. The currency will more or less stay with it, given the fact that the central bank governor will be around for quite some time, unless he pulls some moves that we are not anticipating. Then having a Nigerian bank maybe for the long term would be good, because certainly those valuations have to correct at one point or another. And you've mentioned again the Kenyan banks are there isn't much room.
The upside story is very weak.
Yeah,
that's
but
what
again,
he's saying.
Yeah, but again, 6 months from now, I don't know if we'll be talking the same.
That's true.
There are a number of discussions going on that would potentially affect operations and how the lending rate and all. So I know the finance bill will potentially be tabled about 1 week from now.
Yes.
So I don't know what direction that will take.
Okay.
But you see, based on the current environment, you may think there's no more room, but as and when things unfold,
change, then there could be.
Then so you take a
it
view.
to be prudent and to have many parameters that you're following.
I agree.
Yeah. And Airtel Nigeria listed?
Airtel Nigeria, first group-wide, I think they've only
actually it was the Airtel's Africa operations that listed on the Nigerian
the group itself, right? The group itself. Well, I think as a group they've only, and please correct me if I'm wrong, they've only been recorded the positive net profit for only 1 year. Well, again, this year we've really seen, companies that are not really making a lot of money, bottom line, come into the market. Well, not only in Africa, but we've seen Uber, we've seen some of this technology, the Jumia itself, we've seen Uber itself, we've seen Lyft coming on board.
Yeah.
I'm alluding to the fact that telcos, they highly rely on technology.
Yeah.
So you don't really know what trajectory it will take. So for an investor who would potentially want to go into such a company, is again very long term.
Okay.
Because as a fundamental investor, I don't think 1 year of positive financials is enough. Yeah.
That's a short break for the closing bell. We'll come back. We're back. Market is close. We are going to give an update on the closing numbers shortly. But before we took the bell ringing break, the market is closed. Just a reminder, we are talking about Airtel listing its group operations in Nigeria. Oh, by the way, Rolly, they first listed in London Stock Exchange.
Yes.
Then they came and listed in the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And we realized there's a market cap differential between the two listings.
Two listings, right?
Yes.
Okay, I understand. First, there's a time lag difference.
Yeah.
So maybe that could potentially impact that.
Yeah.
And then the level of liquidity in London and in Nigeria.
The market in London is a bit more punitive on Airtel's Africa operations.
Maybe I don't know.
The market.
The money is in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Money is in Africa. So we're just chopping money, and there's liquidity in Nigeria. More, I suppose there's more liquidity and money that's chasing for returns in Nigeria potentially more than, because if you have money in London, you're looking at Africa vis-a-vis a global emerging market basket. If you're a local fund manager in Nigeria, your mandate is just Nigeria, and you only have the option of either an IPO or fixed income. So you'll probably get more liquidity there for this kind of IPO, which is an African one, than you would in London, I suppose. That's
it's also a function of market depth. Compare the two markets. London
potentially.
Is more deep than Nigeria.
And then the other fact that performance this year for Africa generally, it's been good, it's better than last year, but certainly not where it was expected to be. So maybe investors in Nigeria potentially let's rely on this IPO that are coming in, they'll make those quick spreads. But generally year to date, since it IPO'd in I think in London it's 10% down, but since it hit its bottom to the current price, it's about 5%. So it's been positive trajectory. Let's see what they can do.
Okay. Let's talk Egypt. Inflation. I think 9% recorded last month in June. 9.4. Yes. Yeah, correct. The first time since I think March 2016, right? And I think the reason why the central bank held its interest rates was the action the government took about a week ago, where subsidies were finally reduced, pushing energy prices by about 21% up. So they're expecting the inflation to probably tick up by a few
percentages over the next maybe this quarter or maybe the coming one. So you wouldn't really want to be cutting interest rates during the time when you're expecting maybe your inflation to correct. So but that is temporary. I think consensus is about 100 basis points cut, either done in maybe October, December, but certainly before the end of the year. And generally globally the trend seems to be shifting towards cutting.
And how does that impact asset prices in Egypt? I mean, Egyptian assets probably one of the best performing in Africa.
What exactly affecting?
The inflation, that inflation trajectory. You're actually essentially saying there's a potential upward trajectory in inflation in Egypt.
No, that is temporary.
Yeah, it's transitory.
Yeah, just temporary. Just cushion. Energy is definitely an important product for Egyptian citizens and all, corporates and all. So the cut, I think, but the cut this year was less. Rather, the energy price increase was this year was less than last year. I think increasing by about 21% this year. Last year was about, I think, in the 30% level, 35%
So there's
level.
a subsidy, but it still goes up to 21%.
No. You see, the subsidy pushes up. There's a subsidy cut, but energy prices goes up. You're previously being subsidized the cost you're paying. So looking to the government, it's a subsidy, but to the consumer, it's an increase.
In spend. Any likely impact on an upward trajectory on stocks, Egyptian stocks?
Maybe the treasury bills. Maybe the treasury bills.
So fixed income would do slightly better in the
maybe this quarter, maybe because investors were expecting rates to come down, which will push down the T-bill rates and all. But now, given that it's been held, maybe now demand will come back. Though it's still very attractive. It's still quite attractive.
What are the rates there?
I think around 15-16% down.
Is that for the 1 year?
For the 1 year.
Wow.
For the 1 year Egyptian treasury bill, and it's actually come low. I think last year we were talking about something around 18%. 18%.
That's not bad.
Because the money we were discussing, the 15-year, the Kenyan 15-year, which in local currency could potentially do 12%. And you're telling me I could get 1 year 50%. I don't know what the outlook on currency. Do you have a sense of the outlook on currency? Is it stable? Do you expect any movements up and down over the next 12 months?
I'll bring in the dollar question and what the Fed is doing. If you had what Powell said yesterday, definitely the trajectory is downward again. That will potentially have an impact on the dollar.
Egyptian dollar versus Egyptian pound versus the current the dollar.
Exactly. Where is the Egyptian pound right now? The last time I checked, it was about 16.66. 12 months before, it was definitely above 17. So that would mean it's not only stable but potentially strengthening against the dollar.
Because that's interesting. In a way, you're saying there could be some upside when talking about Nigerian equities, especially in the banking sector. Potentially. Long term, maybe. Not now. So nothing exceptional there. Then when you're coming back to, when you're circling into Egypt, you're saying there could be some upside in FI.
Again, let me bring in equities here.
Yes, please.
Yeah, if the maybe investors would potentially not be very attracted with the American treasuries because their rates are coming down. They'll have to hunt for yield elsewhere, and that will potentially drive them to emerging markets. And you see emerging markets, if you think of one of the key frontier markets, emerging markets, Egypt will certainly come into your radar. As one of the economies really roaring right now, coming back from a tough period of time. So definitely a low base, and therefore there's a lot of room of expansion. So it's not only FI, but also I think equities in Egypt will be quite good.
Are there any specific sectors? Because you've said they're building the economy, so certainly there the demand for fixed income from the government's perspective is pretty high. But then when they're building the economy, what are the sectors? Is it the energy sector? Is it cement sector? Is it consumption? Where do you see opportunity?
The cement sector in Egypt struggling a bit. There's a bit of an oversupply. I think about 12 million tons.
12 million tons.
12 million.
Because how long will it take to clear that glut?
Some plants are closing shop.
That's not good news.
So at least last year, some plants are closing shop. It was mainly because of the army plant.
Okay.
That came in live.
12 million.
yeah,
What is it in Kenya? Do you have a sense?
What
The excess capacity. Do we have
do we-
excess
do we
capacity?
have
don't have
excess- I
excess
don't think
for us,
I don't think we-
it's balanced out.
It's
yeah,
balanced
more or
out.
less. It's
Okay.
not like
More or less balanced.
the other
out.
And
side.
they haven't
12
had
million.
any-
That's so.
That's a lot.
That's quite
Okay,
that's
interesting.
That's
All
quite
right.
a lot.
But let's get back to Kenya. Sorry, I
Mhm.
mean, when we started off the show, I said that the Kenya Revenue Authority has just gazetted new duty rates for a number of products at the rate. In fact, the inflation, the annual average inflation for last year, which is about 5.15%, and we've seen an upward adjustment to the duties, specifically for pump prices, petroleum products, diesel and petrol. And so essentially we're expecting the next week's when are they doing the reviews? On Sunday, when they're doing the next review, which is in about 2 days time, we should expect that the pump prices should go up. If pump prices go up by about 5%, even factor in another 2% for the underlying increase, the monthly increase, that could be you're looking at about 8% monthly adjustment in for pump prices. Do you think this could potentially trigger an upward revision in consumer prices?
Consumer prices.
And is that a problem?
Energy and its weighting when it comes to computing inflation is not as big as food. So your main concern actually should be where are we heading towards? How is the food situation in Kenya right now? I'm aware we're currently trying to purchase about 12.5 million tons of
maize.
maize.
We didn't have rains. The rains were insufficient.
Well, it's not a matter of insufficiency. I think it's a matter of timing.
It's a lot- okay.
So yes, farmers planted South Rift, Central Rift, and all. They planted, but the rains didn't really come in time. So yes, you find your seeds have germinated, but at one point they really need a lot of water.
Okay.
And when you don't bring that amount of water, then it becomes a problem. But it's a bit scattered. Some farmers are doing well, others are maybe potentially burning. So the situation is more or less. I think it explains what the government is doing. In the reserve, I think they had about 4 million tons, and they want to import 12.5 million tons, which would probably cater for us about 3 months.
Okay.
But depending on how they procure it, then maybe that could trigger a bit on the inflation. But certainly, energy is also an important aspect of it.
Yeah,
so if it's going up 8%, it will
Yeah.
certainly contribute a few basis points
Yeah.
to the. But my own view, we will still remain within the band.
Do you think that if there's a slight uptick in inflation, do you think the central bank could adopt a more hawkish stand to try to raise the policy signal rate?
Raise the policy rate at a time when everyone is trying to cut?
Yeah.
You
don't see something like that?
I don't think so. Maybe. I don't think so.
Fine.
I don't think so. But she had asked a question on sectors in Egypt. So my view, when a country is, coming out of a tough time, well, you have to, you have to bank, you have to consume,
buy
you have
food.
more.
Finally, we see where you're putting your
Yeah.
money, which bank. So
it could be again you're comparing your banks and consumers and your cement players.
But really, tell me, as we wind up the show, the Nairobi Security Exchange launched derivatives.
Yeah.
As an asset allocator, are you bullish on such platform? On
derivatives?
Yeah.
Yeah, to certainly deepen the financial sector in Kenya. But we need a lot of players to come in to make it really efficient. So we move up from 2 contracts in one day to more than 10, 20, 30 in one contract. So maybe long-term wise, we will definitely come in at one point.
So they've kicked it off with single stock features and the stocks, and then the index. Any other asset class you'd want to be brought on board? Commodities.
The gold ETF that was brought seems not to have done well. Rates as well. But certainly with time, as the market improves, as expertise and savviness of our investment managers keep on going up, then they'll want to,
We're looking
explore.
at you, Rolly. We are looking at you. So we'll ask you
They're really
if
savvy.
it's
Rolly, are they really savvy?
We will look at
Our
we will
managers
ask you.
really savvy?
Well,
You're taking your money to Egyptian banks instead of supporting the local banks. But I mean, that's on
Well,
the
I have
note.
my clients at heart.
You must chase a return.
Yeah, I mean, Rolly is up for delivering alpha, right?
Yes,
It's all about
it's
delivering
all
alpha.
about
Rolly.
Oh, yeah.
The clients.
Oh, yeah.
Alpha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rolly,
Impact.
To the client.
Rolly, it's been nice having you.
Thank you.
Always nice to have you here.
Thank you.
That was Rolly.
Yeah.
Rolly Kipkemoy is an investment analyst at Nabo Capital, taking us through a typical investment strategy for Sub-Saharan Africa. And Rolly's busy buying banks in Egypt.
No, I didn't say that.
Yeah, you didn't say that. You implied. It's all about what you didn't say. Yeah. Okay. But we look forward to more discussions, and next week we'll now leave you with the market close figures, and have a nice weekend.